Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. So really wanted to drop a quick video here to get some thoughts from the community on a question that I've been thinking about now that we are just over a year since the release of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So that was the last theatrical release of a Star Wars film that came out just over a year ago in theaters. And ever since then, I've been sort of thinking about, in my mind, how I feel about that film. Because I gotta be honest with you, I was pretty disappointed with Star Wars Episode 9. And I still to this day have not picked up that 4K release. And I just have not been able to bring myself to pick up that movie. And that really says a lot to me about how disappointed I was with that film. And so the thought that I wanted to put forward to the community to get your thoughts on, and I'll share with you my opinion on this question, is which is better, okay? The prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy? So as you all know, the prequel trilogy came out in 1999 to 2005. So you had the Phantom Menace that came out in 99, followed up by 2002's Attack of the Clones, followed up by Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith in 2005. And so that was the prequel trilogy. And then, of course, in more recent years, we've had the sequel trilogy, 2015's Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and followed up by 2017's The Last Jedi, and then Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. So the prequels came out years ago, the sequel trilogy is in the can, and now the question becomes, which is better, the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy? That's the question that I'm posing to the community. Now, I'll give you my thoughts on it. There are things that I like about both of these sets of films. So as I think about the question, which is better, it really comes down to what I like about the prequels and what I like about the sequels, and which one appeals to me the best. So when I think about the prequels, what really appeals to me about the prequels is the fact that you have a more coherent story arc to the prequels, okay? So going into the prequels, we know that the prequels tell us the backstory of Anakin Skywalker and the events that lead him to turn to the dark side and ultimately become Darth Vader. So we have that story arc in the prequels, and they ultimately lead us up to a conclusion in Revenge of the Sith, where you can see a clear path to Episode 4, A New Hope. So I like that about the prequels. I didn't care for everything that went in the execution of it, but the overall story arc of the prequels worked for me. So that's what I liked about the prequels. Okay, so what did I like about the sequel trilogy? Well, for the sequel trilogy, what really stuck with me and what really appealed to me about the sequel trilogy more than anything else in the prequels is the characters. I love the characters in the sequel trilogy. So Rey, Finn, Poe really stuck with me in the sequel trilogy. So overall, I found the characters in the sequel trilogy to be more likable. I liked those characters way better than any of the characters in the prequels, okay? I did like Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn in the prequels. I like Samuel Jackson's Mace Windu. And as far as characters, that's pretty much it in the prequels. But there's no characters in the prequels that I liked any more than the characters in the sequel trilogy. They were just far more likable to me in the sequel trilogy, and I cared about them more. I think the story did them a tremendous disservice, but I liked the characters in the sequel trilogy. The other thing I like about the sequel trilogy more so than the prequel trilogy is I think that the sequel trilogy arguably has the best film of the six in Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So I think The Force Awakens is the best of the three sequel trilogy films, and I think is better than any of the prequel films. I think the best prequel film is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I think that's actually a pretty decent Star Wars film. but it doesn't quite rise to the level of The Force Awakens for me. The other aspect that I really liked about the sequel trilogy more than the prequel trilogy is the fact that there's more use of practical effects and it's not as CGI heavy as the prequel films. I found, for me, one of the turnoffs of the prequel films is they seem to be way too CGI heavy and too fake for me in some scenes. I did like the fact that in the sequel films, you had more practical effects. And I appreciate that because that sort of reminds me more of the nostalgic feel of the original Star Wars film. So I really like that about the sequel trilogy. All right, so bottom line, where do I come down on this? Like I said, the prequel trilogy for me, from a story arc perspective, works way better. I feel like the sequel trilogy, from a story standpoint, overall was a hot mess by the time you got to Rise of Skywalker. And that's why I still have not picked up that 4K Blu-ray, and I don't know if I ever will. So story-wise, the prequel trilogy is better overall. But because of the strength of the characters in the sequel trilogy and the overall visual style and the fact that The Force Awakens Episode 7 for me is the best film of the six, I give a very slight edge, and I mean super slight edge, to the sequel trilogy. It's like a 51-49 edge for me. It's that close. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Do you prefer the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy? Which one appeals to you the most? Which one has the best characters for you? Which one has the best story to you? Which one sticks with you the best? Let me know that in the comments below. And also let me know what you are looking forward to in upcoming Star Wars films. Let me know that in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll look to see you next time at the movies. Peace.